If you don't do what it takes to win, you don't just win. And we're in a very bad mindset in this world right now where people want things given to them, this entitlement culture, this complacency culture, and you guys are gonna have to go out there and win. If you guys quit something in the first 6 months, that's like quitting freshman year of college, but for your future, your goals and dreams. People go for 5 years to make someone else's goals and dreams come true, but they won't quit, or they won't push through quitting for 6 months on their own dreams. Okay, so this is who I am, guys. From 2003 to 2011, I was one of the top online poker players in the world. And I did that, and we'll talk about how I stumbled into that. I became a real estate investor in 2014. I've been doing this full time ever since then. Some of y'all may know that I'm one of the top eXp growth leaders in the world. I run an organization called the Wolf Pack, and we're gonna talk about how we built that a little bit at the end. And then it's kind of a weird hobby. I guess I'm one of the self-proclaimed underground big bass champions of North Texas. And you guys are gonna hear kind of what I'm doing with my hobbies at the end of this, and what business allows you to do is you can go back and chase your childhood goals and dreams. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tell you my comeback story, and I'm not here to sell you guys anything. I got nothing to sell you. All I really wanna do is try to inspire you a little bit. I want to help you set realistic expectations, because what I see for training thousands of entrepreneurs, there's a lot of unrealistic expectations on work ethic, what it takes, commitment, sacrifice, and how long it takes to be successful. I wanna help guys to confirm some of the things that you guys are doing, that you're on the right path. I want to share some important life lessons, and then I'm going to give you a comeback story that should inspire you guys, okay? So here's my story. I was born in Atlanta. I moved to Dallas when I was 4. I was born the son of a Presbyterian minister, so no pressure, right? I was one of those typical PKs. I grew up and kind of ran rogue in my early days and kind of came back into life, settled down a little bit, and figured out my life a little bit later. But I moved to Dallas. I went to Huffman, Renner, Shepton, Plano West, if you guys know the area. The Wolfpack, where I brought the team name for our organization that we grow globally, is from my high school. We were the Wolfpack, and then I went to the University of Oklahoma, 2003, and then I always wanted to become a professional bass fisherman, as weird as that sounds. But this is what I want you guys to ask yourself right now, because I had this as a big limiting belief for years as I grew my career, or I started to, and also even before I even started in entrepreneurship. I looked at all these people that had great lives, the things I wanted, the house that they're living in that I wanted, a place like this. And I had this limiting belief that somehow they were special, or they came from money, or they had a unique characteristic, or they were hyper intelligent, or something about them that led them to be different than everybody else. And that's what led me to not start in my business journey, just to be honest. So I didn't come from money. I grew up in a good family. My parents always fed me, always had clothes, we always had presents at Christmas, but I didn't have the ability to travel to lavish vacations, and I didn't have a lot of nice stuff. And I grew up in an area in Plano West where kids were getting like $60,000 cars as they turned 16 type of stuff. So I was around the money, and it really kind of hurt my self-esteem looking at all this. And when I was growing up, I literally would walk a half a mile from my school to get picked up behind the middle school so the other kids didn't see the car that I was getting picked up in. So I'm saying this to tell you guys this, that it doesn't matter where you came from, it doesn't matter what your background, you can create whatever you want in life, but you're gonna have to go through a certain process. I'm gonna help you recreate kind of the process that I went through. So one of the first things I want to talk about is competition in sports. So I grew up playing sports competitively. I played football, basketball, soccer, baseball, lacrosse, and this was a big part of my life. And the reason why it's a big part of my life is it teaches you a lot of what it takes to win in life and business in general. So the first thing I learned from playing sports is how to win and lose. If you guys cannot handle your emotions in business, you will not be in business for very long. Many of the mistakes that we come from or have in business that hurt our business, that delay us in time, are not from skill sets, they're from mindset, they're from emotional patterns that we can't handle. And I'll tell you about how I lost control of my emotions and it destroyed my life for a little bit. It taught me how to handle competition. Who here has competitions trying to take their market share, right? Does it occupy your thoughts? You think about it. Think about the expense of a thought if it's not going to an income-producing activity. Every time you have a thought going the wrong direction, you're losing money in your business, but people don't think about it. So I talk a lot about thought occupation expenses, and competition takes a lot of thoughts out of our plate and creates fear, creates frustration, puts us into the wrong mindset to go out there and really achieve and win. It taught me about self-development. It taught me that I can do something over and over, consistently improve myself and get better over time. And this is kind of lost in our culture right now, where people just think they're not smart or they can't do it. You can do whatever you want, maybe not right now, but you can become the person that can do it later. And this is what I think a lot of people don't think about. It taught me discipline and commitment to others. Now, this is kind of the first lesson I want to go into. So this is what I learned from my dad. I'm gonna tell you a couple stories real quick. So the first one is, my dad taught me that you only win if you win. So when I was growing up, I was always playing my dad chess, checkers, card games, and I think this is a big problem. I see a lot of parents and friends raising their children, and they let them win at things. And when I was growing up, my friends' parents let them win at things. Now, if I let Forrest, who's my kid, win at something, and we're playing basketball, and I could win, but I let him win, did he actually win? So what am I conditioning my kid to believe? That things are given to them, and that you can win even if you don't win. And then if he gets excited that he won, did he just get excited that he actually lost, right? So what my dad taught me was you only win if you win. So I used to play my dad for years. He would whoop me in chess, right? He would beat me as bad as he could. So if I could beat you 100-0, he would beat me 100-0 if he could. And so the point he was trying to make is you don't win unless you win. And for years that happened. And then finally what happened was I actually beat him once, and you know what he did? He stopped playing me. Yeah, he did. He gave me a nod, and he taught me the lesson. But later in life, I realized if you don't do what it takes to win, you don't just win. And we're in a very bad mindset in this world right now where people want things given to them, this entitlement culture, this complacency culture, and you guys are gonna have to go out there and win. Now, the second thing he taught me was never quit. And this is cliche, but these are lessons I learned at like 12 years old. So I played a lot of competitive sports. Now, I was fairly short when I was growing up. So I was on baseball, basketball, football, but on the basketball side, when I got to 12, kids shot up to like 6'1", I'm still like 5'5". And I was on a very competitive basketball team. And it led to me getting picked on by my coaches and certain things. I had a very tough coach, is the nicest way to say it. And he would beat me up a lot, and verbally beat me down. And so there was at the state championships, I'll never forget it. I used to shoot my free throws a little bit short, and I'd hit the front of the rim. He'd always get on me for shooting short. And what he did was, in front of hundreds of people at the state championships, says, if you don't shoot the ball over the backboard every time while we're practicing for hundreds of people to see, you don't get a play in the game. So here I am shooting this ball over the backboard, embarrassing myself, right? And this is just one example of what I dealt with for years. I cried myself to sleep every day. I wanted to quit more than anything, and my dad just would not let me quit. Now looking back later, when you kind of hear what I went through, that's kind of what instilled that in me, that even if it's not fun, even if it's not what we want, it may be what we need, and many times we quit. And think about how many people quit a new business within the first 3, 6, 9 months. They try and it's just not working, it doesn't work, right? Or is it they're not working? If you guys quit something in the first 6 months, that's like quitting freshman year of college, but for your future, your goals and dreams. People go for 5 years to make someone else's goals and dreams come true, but they won't quit, or they won't push through quitting for 6 months on their own dreams, okay? So I just want you guys to understand this. If you guys are having children, this is a big lesson that led to create the character and the type of person I am today. Then what happened was I went off to the University of Oklahoma, my sports career ended. And this kind of created a void for me. And I think this happens to a lot of people in sports. But what happened for me was I was a freshman in college, and I was watching ESPN. Who watches the World Series of Poker? None of y'all? Okay, who knows the story of Chris Moneymaker, right? So what happened was technology fused into brick and mortar. This is happening all around the world. We'll talk about eXp as well. That's how I identified that opportunity. But there was a weird window of time where an accountant, just an average guy out of Tennessee, put $40 in a poker site, satellited into a $10,000 main event seat, ran that into, or he went out to the main event, he won that tournament, won like $2.2 million, and overnight it caused this massive online poker boom. So what happened is you could play more hands per hour on a single table online than you could through a brick and mortar casino. I could maybe play 200 hands in a day in 8 hours at a casino, but on the internet, I could play maybe 400 to 1,000 hands per table, and I was playing 16 to 20 tables at a time. So literally in my freshman dorm, I went from playing for pennies to dollars, tens of dollars, all the way up to one of the top online poker players in the world. And it was because of massive repetition and pushing against resistance, which is what grows everything really when you think about it. But the point is, I watched one person's life from afar, never met the guy until later, and it inspired something in me to change my life trajectory. So I want you to think about that as I do this speech, what you can take from it, because we're gonna get into some stuff here, okay? So the online poker boom happened, and then what happened for me was, I kind of just told you a story right there, but I learned a lot of lessons from poker. The first one was financial management. Think about expenses and revenue. If you ever play poker, what happens if you have a big stack versus small stack? Can you get more aggressive if you have less working capital or more working capital? So a lot of poker is teaching you money management, because once you run out of money, you're out of business, right? And if you have a lot of money, you can make a few more mistakes, you can get a little bit more aggressive, but you can also make big mistakes, and we can run out in front of ourselves and trip over ourselves. The next thing it taught me was emotion management. This is very important. So if you get frustrated and you lose your cool, what happens? You take it to your partner, you take it to your contractor, you take it to your title company, you create another problem, and another problem after that. Communication. How do we communicate? 3 separate ways. What do y'all think they are? Body language, tonality, and the actual words that we say. Now, who thinks the words are the most important thing? Almost everybody. That's why they're fixated on scripts. Why do we fixate on script? Low self-esteem. We don't think we're going to pick up a call, talk to someone unless we feel comfortable getting into a conversation. But when you look at a study, it's called 10-45-45, it's a breakdown in the way of communication conversion. 10% is the words that we say, the actual words that come out of the mouth. 45% is the way that I deliver those words, the tonality, the emotion, the punchline, the energy in the voice. And the other 45% is nonverbal body language. So I could read someone across the table, whether they had a good hand or not, just by their posture, by their breathing patterns, by the way their eyes move, by the way their lips curled. And this is how I started to learn how to negotiate in business and communication and sales. If you learn body language, you will get more contracts, you will get more deals. And if you want to build a big team, you'll attract the right agents, the high-powered individuals, the influencers, the top producers, the broker owners, and people that you wouldn't otherwise if you can't touch into them emotionally. Now, when you really think about poker, it's investing. We're putting money in every single decision that we make. We have information available. We decide, do we take the risk or not, put money in or not. And so we're learning in and out processes on how money compounds, taking risk, and also it taught me how to go broke and stand back up and keep going, okay? Now, here's where kind of a story happened. So who knows what happened with the online poker world back in 2011? So I was sitting there printing money, driving sports cars, diamond watches, $1,000 nights at the bar, had everything going as a 20-year-old kid in college. And I woke up the next day, and guess what? The United States Department of Justice seized full to poker stars, and shut down the poker industry overnight without warning. Literally without warning. So it'd been like if we all go to sleep tonight, and we woke up, no more real estate industry, no more investors, no more real estate licenses, no more rental properties, all gone overnight without any of us having any warning. Legitimately, that's what happened. This taught me a lot of problems, or I had to go through a lot of problems, because what happens is we tie ourselves to sometimes a single skill set. So I'd urge you guys to be working on multiple skill sets and multiple businesses just in case one goes away. It took my identity away, and I didn't realize how much my identity was tied to the thing that I was doing, but my future was gone, the path I saw myself going. My friends, every single one of us lost our lives at the same time. People were killing themselves. It was a very bad time that happened. I lost hope, and I destroyed my self-esteem. And this is when I learned about tilt. Okay, so tilt is an emotional shifting of your mindset that makes you make decisions that you wouldn't have made otherwise if you were right in the same emotional pattern before you got into a tilt, right? Happens in trading, happens in poker, happens in anything with swings in business. Happens if you lose money on a house. What happens if you lose money on a house? Do you get a little shell-shocked on the next house where you may make, oh, it doesn't look like a deal. You're making a little bit lesser offer. Also on the flip side, if we're getting deals that are going through and we're doing 2 or 3 deals that go really well, we can run over ourselves and trip over ourselves because we think every deal is going to work, and that's how we get caught into a bad deal usually, because we think we have the Midas touch and everything's working. Okay, so I learned this the hard way, because once the poker sites went away, I gambled off all my money. I went to the WinStar Casino, blackjack and craps, gambled off hundreds of thousands of dollars, and basically put myself in a situation where I had to move back home with my parents. And so, trying to make sure where I'm at here. Okay, so basically what happened was I had to tuck tail, move back home in my mid-20s. So if you guys are in this spot, it's okay. You can move back at home. You can live there for a number of years and still become successful. And I moved back home. And the worst part was I did not even have the ability to move into my own room, because this was now storage. I had to move into my sister's bedroom, and I had this tiny little bed, little twin-sized bed. I had a bar stool for a desk, I guess is what I called it. And I had a basically destroyed mindset. And this is where I'm gonna kind of help you understand where I got out of this and what I did and how I came back and what process I kind of went through. So when something like this happens in life, you have a lot of reflection because you don't have the time into what you were doing before. So you're trying to figure out what happened, why this happened, how I went from here, and how I'm here now. And so a couple things I was thinking about was, okay, why did this happen? And I'm gonna explain why in a second. And then what do I want and where do I wanna go? And the first thing is I knew that I wanted to have less stress. And I knew I wanted to have a family. I knew I wanted to have the things in life that we all wanna have, but they cost money, right? A lot of money. So I knew I needed to have wealth, but I also knew that I needed to have health, because if I don't have my health, I can't go out there and create wealth. So health is a primary starting point for most successful entrepreneurs when you really think about it. Now, I created what's called the wealth quadrant years ago. And here I'm gonna give you the reason why. So if you ever see this taught on stages and things like this, I created this back in 2015. So I ran a consulting company. And this is pretty much the components that every wealthy person I've ever met's gone through this process to create their net worth. So I'm gonna go through and kind of how I put it together. So the first box is multiple streams of income, MSI. Now, when you're taught multiple streams of income, what is the kind of teaching principle behind this? If you have multiple streams of income, you could be making more money. But is that really what it does? That's really not what multiple streams of income does, really, when you think about it. What if you had 1 billion income streams and they all make $1? How much does that make? $1 billion. But what if you had one really good income stream and it makes $1 billion? How much does that make? So you're both making $1 billion, but you have 1 billion income streams over here and one over here. So it has a zero relationship to your income. But what if you had the $1 billion income stream and it went away? It was your only income stream. Now you're in a bad spot. So the first thing is you need to insure your future. Multiple streams of income, oops, sorry guys. That was on the last one. Multiple streams of income is an insurance policy. So if you have one good income stream right now, it can go away. I had a great one. I was making a lot of money playing online poker and it went away overnight without warning. When you have one income stream, what also does it do? It creates stress, it creates emotional frustration, it creates that fear and the occupation of thoughts, right? So when you have two, you're less concerned at what happens to one. You can lean on one if you lose one. So I believe everybody should work to have 3 income streams, because if you have 3 and you lose one, you're down to 2, giving you time to get back to 3, 4, 5, and 6, if that kind of makes sense a little bit. The next thing I learned was the reason why I wasn't able to get far enough ahead and why all these things were happening was because of duplication issues. I was a single individual doing everything on my own. So in the poker world, if I was sick, tired, frustrated, had a death in the family, something bad was going on, I still had to show up to play. There's no leverage outside myself. So what I realized was all the wealthy people I ever met had some type of duplication. They owned multiple rental properties, had multiple YouTube videos, had multiple employees, had multiple people on the team. They were using other people's money, other people's time, other people's systems, right? They were not trading one-to-one time unit relationships, meaning calling someone for 30 minutes to getting 30 minutes with one customer. They were leveraging something outside themselves. And then the last 2 right here. I'm gonna explain this on the next slide. So the 3 ways that we create income in business are active or time traded, equity models and ownership models, and residual income. I don't know why it keeps going back, guys, but most of the world stays in the time traded world. This is a 9-to-5 job, this is flipping houses, this is sales, this is pretty much anything where your time stops, your income stops completely. And the reason why this is risky and hard to do long term and create wealth is because of those life liabilities that pop up. So if you think about it, let's say you're making $1 million a year selling real estate, wholesaling or flipping houses. Then you come down with a major health issue where you have to take care of your parents for a year. I can tell you story after story of people I've seen in business where they can no longer put the time into their business. And if you can't put the time into your business, and the time into your business creates the income coming out of it, where is your business right now? So you need to start thinking about these other 2 income streams. Now, why does equity create wealth? Let's look at it compared to duplication on the first one. So let's say you had a couple rental properties. You had a couple stocks. You're driving home today, you get hit in a car wreck. You go into a coma. What happens when you wake up 12 months later and you look at the markets went up 10%? Your net worth grew while you were sleeping. So what that means is wealthy people understand ownership positions expand without time allocated to make them grow. So if you put yourself in equity positions at the right time, they can expand around you while you're trading your time to go out there and find other equity positions or trading it to create more active income to keep the cash flow going in your business. Now, equity positions can also go down, so you have to be smart about that. But let's look at it compared to duplication. What if I had 1 rental property and then 20 rental properties and you woke up and the comparison, the difference? You had 10% growth versus 200% growth with the same one market force that went up 10%. So it's the duplication of multiple rental properties timing the equity expansion that's gonna create wealth. And we're probably gonna have a big opportunity coming forward over the next couple of years to do this. And the last one right there is passive residual income. It is the only thing you guys need to put on your goal board. It should be the only thing on the wall. If you guys, you ask people all the time, do you understand passive income? Everybody says yes. And you say, how much passive income do you have? And they say, I don't have any. And I say, you just don't understand it. Because if you understood what this would do fundamentally for your life, for your family, for your future, you would go fight that tiger in the other room right now to get that passive income. He was doing that last night. But the point is, this is a time and money freedom income stream. It gives you both time and money. So $500,000 a year through sales, $500,000 through rental income, 80 hours a week, 60 hours a week, whatever it is. Here you're coaching your kid's soccer team. You're doing something in your community. You're living the life that you want. So the end goal is always residual income, okay? Now here's my dark years. I fell off into a very deep dark depression, just to be honest. I almost took my life. That's how bad it got. And I've been a lot more open after the pandemic as I've seen people do this personally that I knew. And I know that if I can get to that point that's so dark and that low in my life to come back to where I am right now, anybody can do it. So if you guys get to that point, call me, I'll help you out of it. But I fell into a very deep, dark depression. I got overweight. I was bankrupt in every way, physically bankrupt, spiritually bankrupt, financially bankrupt. I had no more friends. And I was literally living in my sister's bedroom trying to escape from the world because I didn't want to be in the world. And it wasn't that I didn't want to live life. I didn't know how to live life at that moment. And I convinced myself that my best days were behind me and the future was not worth living because I already lived like the glory days of my life. And it's a very cyclical trap that a lot of people get caught in. So we live in the past, the present, and the future. And people that are depressed and anxious and having self-esteem issues and self-image issues, they stay in the past with one of two things: past victories or past losses. And it's hard to tell really when you think about it which one's worse. So think about like Married with Children. With Al Bundy, what does he always talk about? I scored those 4 high school football touchdowns, right? So he's living in past victory. When you see people wearing their college stuff and they're like 50s and 60s, they just might really like their school. But a lot of times they're living in the past of what was their glory days, if that kind of makes sense a little bit, right? So if you get stuck in a past victory, you're forgetting that you can improve the future past the past. But what about a loss? What if you started a business and went bad? What if you had a divorce or something like that happen? So we dwell in the past, we forget that we can change the future. Now the present is what we do with it. Whatever our thoughts are on today, what we think now can actually become what we think about the future or manifest in the future. Sorry guys. Okay. Having some troubles here. Okay, so here's the 2 things that changed my life. When I was at rock bottom, I realized that I couldn't go this path for much longer. Now, the first thing I did walk away from my faith for a very long time, and I decided to start praying again. Y'all can take whatever you want from that. Some people may like that, some people might not like that, but that's actually what happened. I walked away from my faith when I was about 16. I got into drugs, parties, girls, all the bad stuff, and for about a decade of my life, I completely walked away from my faith. And then when I came back to it, that's when everything started changing my life. It's a true story. Second thing I did, I came across personal education and self-development at the same time. And I was going to the internet one night, literally typing into the internet, how to not kill myself, something to that bad, as bad as that sounds, because I was that lost in life. And what popped up was the black and white recordings of Napoleon Hill's 17 Principles of Success. I don't know why it's so dark, you can't see that. How many of y'all have read Think and Grow Rich or followed Napoleon Hill, okay? So this is what happened. I came across one of his black and white recordings, and it hit so hard with me because I realized he wasn't trying to sell me a course. He wasn't trying to pitch me a product. He didn't have anything to sell me. That what he was teaching when the black and white recordings was generational, meaning if it worked generations ago and still working today, it's going to work in the future. So it's the sound knowledge that passes generations, which is the only information that we really should try to focus on. And then what happened after that was it let me think and grow rich. Actually, I'm going to go back. Sorry, guys. So it let me think and grow rich, and then that put me down a heavy path of self-development. So I read As a Man Thinketh, Richest Man in Babylon, and then for years I read every book I could get on business, went following Bob Proctor, Les Brown, Zig Ziglar, Earl Nightingale, John Maxwell, and I did go down this path. So I want to confirm with you guys that this is the actual path I went down, because many times I come across people that are on this path, they dabble in it, and then they back off of it, and then they think it doesn't work, right? It was a very long path for me to get here, and it did not start out well in the beginning, as I'll explain. But the first 3 things I did to get my life back under kind of the right momentum and the right trajectory is I changed my physical body. Now, I got videos on my YouTube channel talking about 10 or 15 ways that your physical body, internal and physical on the outside, increases your income. The first thing is, if you're out of shape, what happens is your self-esteem is not high. If you've been in a better shape than you are in a worse shape currently, you're reflecting on the one version of yourself versus the other one, and self-image and self-esteem is one of the most important things we have in life. Because when you look at what creates action, right? Everybody's like, go take action out there. Well, what happens when you go take action? Nothing happens. You try to pick up the phone, but it weighs 1,000 pounds because there's no energy in that phone. There's no energy in the body. So how do you create the energy? You gotta have 2 things. What do you think they're gonna be? Belief in the vehicle that you're driving, whether it's real estate investing, whether it's social media, whether it's affiliate sales, whatever you're doing. You have to believe that the vehicle that you're driving to your goals financially will get you to that end game, because if you don't believe in it, you won't push through and keep doing it. Once it gets tough, you'll bounce from thing to thing to thing to thing. You'll keep moving the external environment around thinking it's what you're doing, but it's not what you're doing, it's who you are, okay? So the first thing I did was I started getting back in shape, which improved my self-image, which made me think I could do more and accomplish more. And also, it creates progressive mindset. So when you see progression in one area of your life, it leads to a habitual pattern of starting progression in other areas of your life. So that's when I started building my mind on 2 different levels, on knowledge and information and skill sets, but also on mental endurance and toughness, which is probably the most important thing in business, because intelligence doesn't get you as far as persistency, resiliency, and getting up once you get knocked down. The next thing I did was I went on a forgiveness kind of process where I realized I had a lot of emotional baggage. And kind of as we go through life, think of you have like a bar over your shoulders, and you screw over somebody, someone screws you over, all these little things start adding up on the weight of life, the weight bench of life. And eventually it gets so much it breaks us. So we need to start taking these things off. And so I started reaching out to people that I knew that I'd wronged and asking for forgiveness all the way back to childhood days. And then everybody that ever wronged me or stole money from me or owed me money, I just unconditionally forgave them right then. And the next thing I said is all these things that I just had happen in my life, as bad as they were, unconditionally I just forgive myself. Starting over, if I hold this over myself, I'm assuming that I have to be perfect for my whole life, and there's no way that's ever happened for anybody. So I'm really bullying myself and being unfair to myself. When you really think about it, that's what we're doing. When we're holding ourselves to a pedestal that's perfect, it's impossible to hit that. And so what I did was I went on this forgiveness process, which took a lot of that pressure off. And then I started focusing on things I was grateful for instead of things that I was wishing I had or resentful that I had, because we live in a world where everybody focuses on what they don't have instead of what they do. And right now, every single person that's got a problem, I can promise you, there's somebody else in this world that you would not trade your problems for. And so I really started kind of working on this process. And then here's kind of the trick with personal education self-development that nobody tells you. So I got super heavy on like the mindset, I'm just gonna manifest everything, I'm gonna think my way to my future, and all this is gonna happen. It's gonna just be a straight road to the top. It did not happen that way. Now I like Rich's speech, and it sounds sound to go in that kind of order. A lot of people go and go straight up, but some of us actually go backwards first. And what happened for me was I thought because I was doing all this Think and Grow Rich and believing in manifestation and correct thinking processes and law of attraction and vibration and frequencies and all this type of stuff that we go into, that it's just gonna work right away. And it made me run out too aggressive and take too many risks, and before I knew it, I was $100,000 in debt. I was facing bankruptcy. This was a very big decision in my life, and I truly believe that the decisions that we make are the reason we show up in the future position that we have in life or the person that we become. So these are my decisions, or these are my choices at the time. I had the choice to quit, file bankruptcy, and just throw in the towel. That was one option. The other option was to kind of quit and get a 9-to-5 job and convince myself that somehow I'm gonna go back into business later. Or I had a choice to grab a broom and work for minimum wage and keep my business going and make just enough money to keep my websites up and keep my, certain things I was doing that had like monthly fees. And the choice I made was I chose to actually grab a broom. And this is a big decision for me because I knew if I filed bankruptcy at that moment, I would never know if I could have gotten out of it if I swung for the fences and really did everything I could to get out of it. And I'd always regret that and doubt myself later. I knew if I got a 9-to-5 job, I'd get stuck in it and I might get caught in a good life and sacrifice the great life I could have later. So I grabbed a broom and I'd work 12, 16-hour days on my investment business. And then at night, I would go sweep floors and stock floors at Academy Sports and Outdoors. I chose Academy because I like to fish and I got a discount. Just kidding, but not really. So I had to do something. I don't know why it's coming in red, guys, but now why I was doing this was I needed to buy time. I want you to think more about time. You hear me talking about past, present, future, time horizons. At the time I was watching YouTube videos. I'd run out of money, and you do not need money, guys. You need work ethic. You can build a business by simply educating yourself for free on YouTube now. So everything I was learning was on YouTube. I was teaching myself how to build WordPress websites and do SEO optimization and learn keywords and all this type of stuff. And at the time, my websites were moving up. So I was one of the first few people on Investor Carrot. How many of you guys are on Investor Carrot platform? You know, Trevor Bach and Adrian Nez. So I was one of the very first people on that platform, and people just don't try. And they had all these morning mastermind calls. It was like me and one other person on there. So I got all this free consulting from Adrian. He's teaching about YouTube. And he's like, if you take your YouTube videos, you link them to your websites, it's gonna change the algorithm, it's gonna drive them up, the rankings. And what I was doing was I was watching my websites go from page 8 to 7 to 6 while I'm grinding through this sacrificial period of my time, hating my life, stocking shelves. But I knew if I could buy enough time and I could get my websites to page 1, I'd start generating inbound leads. And that's essentially what happened. I stuck it out long enough, and I was able to get my page, or some of my lead generation websites to the first page of We Buy Houses Dallas, Sell My House Fast Dallas, some of the biggest keywords. And I went from 100K in debt to sometimes making 100K a week in wholesaling deals. And it happened that fast. And I wanted to quit this whole time, guys. Trust me. So I know what the feeling feels like. Now, before that process, I'm gonna let you guys kind of see how I got connected with Rich and a lot of our friends and people here. So while I was still in debt, I was struggling, I was trying to find more education, and I went to a local REI club just like this, and I found out what affiliate marketing was, because I signed up for the email list, and I get an email, and I'm struggling, grasping for anything I can to get me out of this hole. And I get an email with this weird email called Rehab Valuator. I think the last guy goes, he's talking about this, right? Who knows Danielle Clayman and Jim Ingersoll, right? So I get this Rehab Valuator, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. So I buy that. Then I get upsold to JV Evaluator. I buy that, and I get upsold again to something called Bank Elimination Blueprint. Any of y'all in BB? Jim's Bank Elimination Blueprint? No? It's a little bit older. This is probably like 2015 when this is happening. And what it was, he created a program with Clayman, and what they were talking about was how to do JV deals and get into rental properties without using the bank. Now, I'm 100 grand debt. The reason why I got into investing was I wanted residual income, and I can't control houses. So I was doing a few things at this time. I was teaching myself how to buy directly from the seller with owner financing, and then I came across this and how to do JV deals. And so I got this course, and I was actually to the point where I had maybe 2 or 3 weeks left where I'd maxed out my credit cards. I couldn't borrow a single dollar. I tapped every friend and family member out. I was literally to the point where I couldn't do a deal. And then I did one deal that was about a $3,000 wholesale deal, and then another one that I got from Jim's course where he taught me how to do these deals. And I was telling about a story one night when I was working at Academy Sports and Outdoors. And it was a few days before Christmas, and I get my name called over. This is the BB story. And they call my name over. My boss is 18 years old. He never graduated. I didn't think he didn't even graduate high school. He comes over and he hands me a broom and a sweep pan, laughing at me as he hands it to me, says, "Sweep it up." Some kid thought it was funny to take those little plastic airsoft BBs, take the top off, and threw 50,000 of them across the floors. How many hours do you think it took me to pick those up? It took me like 3 or 4 hours. You know why? Because every time I'd sweep them in the plastic pan, they'd bounce right back out. So I had to pick them up one by one by one or scoop them into my hand. Now, take into consideration, 2 years ago, I was dropping $1,000 a night at the bar. I had $20,000 watch on, essentially, right? Now I'm picking up BBs off the floor, trying to figure out what happened, okay? Trying to figure out, right? So basically, anyway, so I survived a little bit. I told that, so what happened was I reached out to Jim, and I was very grateful for Jim that he put this course together. I sent him a long email telling him that story, and I explained how grateful I was that he helped me. I didn't really mean anything from it or wanted to get anything from it, and he wrote me back and said, "I'm very grateful that you sent me this story. I want to fly you up to Richmond at his Dealmaker event." And that's, some of y'all were actually at that event. That's where a few of us got connected. And why I was so gravitated towards Bank Elimination Blueprint was because I've been going to all these big seminars and all these stage selling gurus that had shiny suits and flashy events and things like this. And it was all kind of back to that original thought process early on. Are they special? What did they do different? And you guys know, a lot of us here, we're just like each other. We're just normal people in our community. I'm hearing stories from Rich and Jim Ingersoll and all these people. And I'm like, if they can do it, I can do it, and it created that belief system. And then when I came up here and I met them and they were so welcoming and so nice to me and not arrogant and just like, who's this person? You know, like they actually accepted me. And these were the people that I gravitated to. So that's why I'm up here, because I don't travel a lot anymore, Daz. And I'm only up here out of respect for Rich and a lot of you guys that became friends with me and helped me in my early journey, okay? Now, kind of explain that. But, so I got a little ahead of myself there. But, okay. So this is what happened. So kind of go through my career here so you guys can recreate it. So first thing is I went into wholesaling first. I was doing virtual wholesaling because I didn't even have the money to drive across town to do deals. Now I was doing virtual wholesaling a little bit different way where you could actually virtual wholesale house in your own neighborhood. It's not that you're just, you know, like doing it remotely, you're doing it just through technology. So literally, if you leave your house, you're losing money. One of the biggest things that we struggle with is time management. And when you're driving across town back and forth, this eats up a lot of your business. So you either need to find someone to do this for you or figure out a different solution or get the homeowners to send you videos or something, because the biggest thing that slowed me down in my career was too much time wasted in driving around town or not verifying that people would be at the house when I get there. And I drive an hour across town and then they wouldn't show up, and guess what happens? You're super excited on the way home. No, it's actually, you're really not excited, right? It can destroy you mentally. He was talking about earlier, the contractor presentation, I was up there listening. He said it's the bids that they do that they don't follow through on that burns you out in business. So it's the things that we do that don't have the payoff on the back end, so you need to audit and analyze your business, guys. But I started virtual wholesaling, gave me some working capital. I started taking on my first fix and flips. I started flipping properties. Then I started buying rental properties. Now, the problem was I ran out of money, and I came across a man named Mitch Stephen. Some of you may know Mitch. And I had a very similar situation where he was in, where I was buying these properties quickly, but I ran out of working capital in my business, and all my money was tied up in the houses, and I had more expenses than I thought, and I was about to run out of money again. And so what I did was, he taught me how he owner financed his properties, which brought the working capital in front, so you're taking the down payment in, so now you have working capital to run your business, you're still in the cash flow position, but you're not now a lender and not a landlord, And then you're avoiding the big expense on the back end, which is what if an HVAC goes out, or what if a roof needs to be repaired? And so this is how I brought money back into my business. Then I went into the creative financing space. I was creating notes, selling notes, holding partial notes, and did this for a number of years. Started buying land, and we did a bunch of mobile homes on land. Now, what happened was I felt obligated to the people that I followed early on, people like Sean Terry, Cody Sperber, some of them are still around. A lot of these people I was watching on YouTube, I was like, well, if I learn from them, they changed my life, maybe I can pay it forward and hop back on YouTube. In the beginning, that's really the kind of the intent why I was doing it. And I started getting on YouTube. I created a YouTube channel called Investor Army, and I just started telling people, here's the problem I'm dealing with, here's how I solved it, and hopefully it helps. That's literally all I did. Here's a problem, here's how I solved it, and I built one of the top 10 YouTube channels in North America for residential real estate investing without any editing, without like any good lighting. So what I want you guys to understand, if you're not on YouTube, you need to be doing this. You need to be in video marketing. I recruited the #1 recruiter in the world to eXp Realty. He did it all through YouTube. He's recruited almost 500 people directly from YouTube. The #3 agent in our company right now, we trained him in YouTube. His first year, he did $67 million in sales. His name's Suman Kim. Some of you guys know Suman. Did almost 100 million next year. So I'm not telling you guys you have to go do it, but it is the fastest, scalable, lowest risk way to grow a business, which is digital internet marketing, video marketing. Why does video marketing work? We just talked about communication. What if I'm over the phone? What are you losing? Body language. What if I'm communicating through text and emails? If you guys are trying to do emails and text messages and all this type of stuff, you are slowing your business down immensely. There's 4 ways we communicate. Text form, audio form, video like Zoom, or in person right now. Now think about a text message. You're having to edit it. You read it again to make sure you don't look stupid and how to misspell word. And you're planning out what you're saying. What if you just send a voice text? Which one's faster? For sure. Now think about that on millions of different things and messages you do throughout your career. So also when you're doing text form communication, you're giving a big risk to people you're communicating with to put their own emotion behind the message. What if I send a message to Forrest, who's a good friend of mine, I said, F you, F you. One could be F you just joking around, one's like, hey, let's throw down. Right? You're giving the third party the ability to take the emotion, assign it however they want. Some of y'all had fights with boyfriends and girlfriends or husbands and spouses that way, probably, when you really think about it. So you want to get on, and so then when you're on audio, you hear the tonality in the voice, but then when you're on Zoom or on video conferencing, you can see the body language. You can see if people are sitting up in their chair or not. And then the last one is in person, because when you're in person, you have all these other abilities to feel things and sense things I'm pretty sure that we don't have records for already, or that we've discovered already. They're saying that there's possibly 7 to maybe even 9 senses that we have, and they're doing a lot of studies on this. Don't want to go off on a tangent, but if you think about like a baseball game, you can read about it in the newspaper, you can listen to it over the radio, you can watch it on TV, or you can go to the game in person. Which one has the highest sensory overload? So we have an internal mind and an external world. And the way that we interpret both is we have our taste, touch, sound, and all our faculties, right? So that when you're in business and conversions and you're trying to motivate people and lead people and get energy out of people, you need to be able to trigger this. And you do this by communicating in the highest form of communication through sensory overload. So if I had a black and white TV up here versus a high-def TV, which one would you want to watch the game on? Okay, so think about how can you increase the sensory overload, and you're going to increase the relationships and the conversion when you're doing sales. Okay, so I started traveling the circuit, speaking at events after this because Jim let me speak, and I went to some other events where they connected me to other speakers. So if you guys want to get on the speaking circuit, get on one small one, do okay. They'll hopefully connect you to the next one, and before you know it, you're out there speaking on the circuit. So the way I got into that a little bit also was I started working for local REI investors. I started running their REI clubs. And this is where I think a lot of people struggle with finding a mentor, because mentors are hard to find. Mentors that are successful, they have money. They don't need more money. What do we do to get into a mentor's life or proximity with a high-valued person? We figure out how to save them time or stress, right? So I went to all the local REI clubs, and I went to Tim Cook in Dallas, or West DFW REI. I was like, I'm gonna work your front desk for you. I'm gonna check people and sign up. And so it was a burden for him. So I'm saving him time, saving him stress. He started introducing me to lots of different people. He is the one that taught me creative financing, subject to transactions, and things like this. So if you guys are trying to find a mentor, find the person that you wanna have a relationship with and have a reason why you wanna have a relationship with them and solve problems in their life, which is freeing up time or stress for them. Do not go to them and say, I'm gonna help you make more money. They have plenty of money. So if someone comes to me now and is like, I wanna help you make money, or I wanna do a deal with you, that's not gonna get them into a conversation. If they say, I'm gonna take a lot of stress off your plate, I'm gonna say how, and if they can prove it to me, okay, then that's what's gonna get you in that front door. Then as I started my YouTube channel, I was traveling around the country. I had a lot of people ask this question, have you ever heard of eXp Realty? Don't worry guys, I'm not pitching, I'm just telling you the story. And, but for 2 years I blew it off. And to be honest, it was because I heard a lot of other people saying negative things about it. And it wasn't until I had a real conversation with the #1 guy in our company. I was speaking at an event in Mississippi. Some of you guys know Walter Wolford and Quincy Long, and they had an event down there in Mississippi. I think you were at that event for us, possibly. And I got put into a speaker's house for 3 or 4 days with Rob, who's the #1 team leader in the world at eXp. He's got 19,500 agents. I think he makes like almost $1 million a month, if you want to know how much he's making. But I could not escape. He was showing me what he was talking about, and he showed me that you could build a large residual income with your real estate license. And it was just like that movie, Swear on My Life. It's like Wolf of Wall Street, where he's like, at the diner, he's like, you prove to me you make $72K a month, I'll quit my job and work for you. I was like, Rob, if you prove to me you're making over $100,000 a month in a residual income stream with no debt, no tenants, no back-end management system, I'm gonna go get my real estate license, I'm gonna travel this country, I'm gonna build this with you. He showed it to me. That was a little over 5 years ago. I went and got my real estate license, and here's what happened. So I got my license. My first year, I recruited 40 agents. They turned into over 150. Second year, they over doubled to 300. Third year, they doubled to 600. My third year is when I recruited Mike, and we got a big jump because of that. Year 4, hit 1,600 agents, and currently right now we're at 2,835 agents globally. We're adding 150 agents every single month, and it has created a very large cash flow for us. I founded an organization, which y'all may see, called the Wolfpack Organization, and in May 2023, we became the #1 net growth organization at eXp Realty for the first time that month. Currently, right now, we're ranked #3 for the net growth for eXp this year currently. And 2022, we sold almost just a few hundred houses, less than 10,000 houses. This year, we could double this. And this has created for me a very large 6-figure monthly net residual income. Now, the point I bring up here is that I tell this story in a few minutes here, but this was almost a 10-year journey. In the first 4 years of it, I didn't make a single dollar because I worked every single day from 100 grand debt to go down to the bottom to get back. Didn't take a single day off. And this is not a flex because at the time I was terrified. I was going into bankruptcy. I guess it's now a cool thing to grind. But here's why the mindset side is so tough, because the day that I found out that I got out of debt, I also found out, not the day, it was like a week later, my partner stole 35 grand from me and I went right back into debt. So over 4 years, I didn't take a single day off. I'm not joking, not a day off. And it was brutal every single day. I wanted to quit every single day. But the only thing I knew is if I didn't quit, that somewhere skill sets would catch up over time, I'd meet the right people, and that of all these other people I saw successful around me, they had to do it too, unless they cheated. And I knew not all of them cheated, so they figured it out. So you just have to figure it out. Don't quit, just keep going. And during this journey, you're gonna doubt every decision you make. It's gonna feel like it's never gonna happen, I promise you, but you just have to stay on course. But that's kind of my story. Sorry we got a little crazy with the microphone and all the stuff in the beginning, but that's kind of how I got here and how I met Rich and how doors opened to other doors. And one thing I also want you guys to understand is everybody's trying to find a niche or a path or a certain thing. You just need to find relationships and get into right proximity to the right people and stay in the game for long enough. Because I went from poker playing to, actually I didn't tell part of my story because it's for time management. I went to a company, I got my insurance license first and went to World Financial Group, which is where Ed Milet's from, and I saw all these successful team leaders. Now, I didn't want to do the insurance business, but it sank in my mind that years later, 4 or 5 years later, when eXp popped up and I was in the real estate business, I saw the parallels between the two, and I hit the ground running. So what I want you guys to think about is on this journey, the things that you see as losses or failures or waste of time, these are the opportunities that give you the vision and the awareness to spot the opportunity that's gonna be the one that's gonna get you to the next level later in life. And so I went from wholesaling to flipping and all these different things to end up at the path that I am right now. So you just stay in the game, you keep going, guys, and look for opportunities along the way, and they will open up. But until you've struggled and failed enough and had enough adversity and been screwed over enough times, you can't even realize what you're missing or even if opportunities are in front of your face, right? So be patient with yourselves, don't beat yourself up. I think that's why a lot of people struggle in business is they have bad self-image and low self-esteem. And I'm gonna wrap it up, yeah. And the last thing, I wanna go back to what creates the energy and the action. So we talked about the vehicle, right? The belief in what we're doing. But what if you believe that what you're doing more than anything is gonna work, but you don't believe in yourself? When this gets tough, which it will, you'll sit down. So the underlying thing that you guys need to focus on is building your self-image, building a self-esteem, because once you believe in yourself, you'll take a risk. But if you don't believe in yourself, you won't take risk. And can you build a business without taking risk? So once you believe in yourself, you believe in the vehicle, those two things hand in hand create the energy, which creates the action, which creates the results, the house, the car, the things that you want. So everything starts from inside first. So if you guys have not heavily gone down personal education, self-development, I was the type of kid that hated school. We were like high school, we had 8 classes a day, 45 minutes of class, and I had to take a bathroom break every class, every day, pretty much through high school. I would not read a book. They could not force me to do this. I hated it because I didn't think it was valuable for what I was doing or where I wanted to go. But when I got into personal education later, started reading hundreds of books, when I realized that this actually was getting me towards my goals and dreams, I became an avid learner and became a big believer in self-education. So what I'd argue is if you did not like education, try to pick up one of these books, or I'll give you guys a list of them, or give Rich one. But that's really what changed my life, was the aggressive pursuit of personal education, which is what you guys are all doing right now anyways, coming to an event like this. But I'm done, guys. They cut me off. I'm going to go. But